Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of October 2nd. My name's Trey, and we have some stuff to cover, so let's get going. We start off with Black Clover 127 Gold and Black Sparks. This was a really solid chapter, I think. I really liked the cover page with all of the Black Bulls sitting around watching a magical television. It was just real weird to see them all hanging out like that when these personalities are very strong personalities, and normally when they're all hanging out, things are going badly for the area they're hanging out in, so it was just kind of cool to see them all chilling. The actual chapter itself, though, starts with Langris completely losing himself to his hatred. He's gone nuts. He's so angry at Finral for not being competent and leaving all the responsibility to him that he refuses to recognize that his older brother has been trying to help him this whole time. And that his older brother has been trying to be there for him. And so the hatred is just, it's welling up. And he goes at it. And Finral tries to answer. He tries to stand up. And he faces Langris head on. And their magic clashes. And you get this shot of the crystal just ruined. And it's such a potent scene. Because you also get to see Finral ruined. I'm talking holes through his chest and through his stomach. He's got a hole through his upper shoulder. He's got a hole through part of his leg. I mean, he's riddled, just like the crystal. And it's crazy to see the way those two things interact with each other, the way they stand for each other at the same time. They've lost the fight, but they've also lost something so much more, and then Finral is down. And Langris goes to finish him off. Langris, he's ready to be done with it. And I knew when that happened that somebody was going to step in, and I was afraid it would just be Asta. But seeing it be Asta and Luck, and Magna, and Charmy was really cool. And then, of course, Noelle immediately runs to Finral's side and starts trying to see what she can do for him. And you have Magna going, yeah, just try it. Just try and attack him again. And you have Luck telling him, I'll kill you first. And he's not smiling. Luck isn't smiling. That's how serious the situation this is. And Asta just has his sword held out. It's like, yeah, no, if you try something, you're dead, Langris. The three of them will kill you. And so then the Wizard King, of course, gets involved, and he's like, hey, you're pretty much scum, Langris. And Finral held back because he loves you, because he's your brother, and he actually cares about you, unlike you. Pretty much. He doesn't say that exactly, but that's pretty much what he's saying. And Langris demands a fight, and swings at Asta, who knows it with his sword. And the Wizard King's like, yeah, go for it. Go for it. Nobody's going to be there to stop this kind of fight in the battlefield, so go for it. It's really clear that he wants Asta to take Langris down a peg. Langris has got to stop. He's losing it. He's too far. I really love that Finral was being a brother here, and we got to see that flashback of Finral popping into Langris' room and being like, hey, come goof off with me. Come on. You're too strict. You're too responsible all the time. Let's go have some fun. And Langris is being like, no! And it's like, I get both sides of it, I guess. Langris has gone too far, absolutely. But Finral just wanted to play around. And the parents are the real problem here, where they drove this wedge between these two brothers, both their sons. And it's crazy to me that they just turn them against each other like this. And this is how that turns out. Langris will kill Finral if nobody stops him. Thankfully, the Bulls are there to stop him. And seeing Charmy, with her grimoire out, super serious, and the big sheep summoned beside her, it was like, yeah, the Bulls are about to fight to protect Finral. Nobody's touching him. Finral is a member of their family, and nobody's getting him. And it's great. It's what Langris should be doing if Langris was on the straight and narrow here. Where he clearly isn't. And I'm excited to see him come back from it. I honestly think it'll be Finral that brings it back, though. That Finral's going to wake up and, you know, bring his brother back to sense. I almost said to sanity, but to sense makes more sense. Also, I love that the Wizard King's aide is immediately like, I'm going to go take care of Finral. I'm going to heal this guy because he's doing the right thing. Got to go take care of him. I'm excited for the next chapter. This one felt a little short, but we did get that flashback, so I guess that's to be expected. Yeah, I want to see how this brother conflict turns out, even though it's probably going to end up being Asta versus Langris. I would love to see Asta, Magna, and Luck versus Langris. That'd be a really cool fight. But next up we have Food Wars 223, Proof of Growth. Kuga has a conversation with Pigtails, as he colloquial calls her, about how Soma isn't a normal first year, and this harkens back to the conversation we had last chapter, at the end of it, where they talk about how the students were selected. It literally harkens back to that, because they literally just show a snippet of that panel again. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think that normally your readers should be smart enough to remember things that are important to the story. If this had been like 30 or 40 chapters, calling it back would have been fine, but it was just the end of last chapter. And granted, you're not going to remember everything that happens, but that seemed like it was kind of an important thing, so it felt like something that should be remembered, you know? So, I don't know, it felt a little weird seeing it immediately again. At the same time, I understand why they wanted to harp on it, because it's going to be a big point, I assume, coming up, is that all of these chefs have been specifically chosen by the chairman to represent the first years. We also have the actual match itself going on, where the team is moving together really well. They've all three come a long way from the Duck Challenge early on in the manga, and to see them moving like clockwork, supporting each other, handing each other stuff is really cool. We really focus on Takumi's dish this chapter, which is Shigarini, or Shigarini. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. I'd never heard of that dish before this chapter, but it seems like it'd be pretty interesting. He stole the dish when he was at Fujisame, which in actuality was the secret was given to him, and said that it couldn't be stolen if they didn't teach him how to do it, and just told him how to do it instead, and he had to figure it out on his own. Then Takumi, he has this really cool scene where he cuts all this ginger as the way he was told to do, not taught to do, so it wasn't stolen. He immediately follows that up by going to need dough, and I was like, okay, what does he need dough for this? Because my understanding is that this is not a dish that would normally require any sort of dough, based on what they were talking about. And a lot of the characters are also confused by this, but immediately Soma's just like, hey, you gotta teach me how to do that sometime, Takumi. And Takumi's immediately like, hey, get back to your stove, go. Or didn't you just say a minute ago you're going to have to be at your stove? Go. I love the interactions these two have had since they've become more friends than rivals, though they are definitely still rivals. But just the way they work together is really interesting to me, and I like that they're continuing to get scenes like that. This is all capped off by Aizen being super creepy, watching and coming up with a plan. He goes back into the storeroom, and I can't help but think that he wants to make something that will offset the beef sugarini pizza that Takumi's working on. I feel like it has to be something maybe with a lot of flavor to try and offset the dough. Maybe something to counter the ginger. Maybe something with, maybe, I don't know, onions or very fresh onions or lemons or something tart to counteract the swift tinge of the ginger. I don't know. Who knows with Aizen. We also get probably the creepiest looking face we've seen in this whole manga, where Aizen's just like, I don't know what to think about it. It was something, that's for sure. But I liked the face. It was. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out. This was another good setup chapter. I think we got a good flashback with Takumi, and we get to learn some more stuff going on there about the way that he picked up techniques, and he seems very confident with himself. And you know, when he's confident, no reason not to be confident too. Next up, we have One Piece 880, which is Zero Escape. Man, this cover page, the Husband Club. I don't know what to say about the Husband Club. Man, okay, yeah. Moving on to the actual chapter, though. Pudding talks to the townspeople, who are understandably upset, tells them she's got it all handled. We see the 31 chefs that I'm pretty sure we haven't heard about before. We'd heard that Streusen had chefs to back him up and help him, but, man, I don't know how I feel about 31 chefs being introduced just like that. It's a little strange to me. At the same time, hey, there were going to have to be more chefs. These are obviously the guys who were helping make the cake before. It's just weird to me that they never got mentioned before now. And maybe they did and I just missed it. It's entirely possible. But we'll move on from that point. Pudding alters the chef's memories and tells the townspeople not to enter the factory so that they can work in secret in there and nobody will get upset that Sanji's there. And the way that she alters them was really clever. She alters it so that the wedding never stopped, that instead the wedding finished and Sanji and Pudding got married, and now they're having to remake the cake due to bad weather that destroyed the cake. It's pretty clever. It's a little strange that none of them ask about Streusen, so I assume she did something with their memories about Streusen as well. But hey, it worked out, so it's fine, I guess. Sanji's already sketched out the cake. He figured out all the ingredients by himself because he could smell them, and Chiffon is shocked by that. But, this is Sanji. All the other chefs are also surprised with his skill. But, I mean, this is Sanji. His whole thing is that he grew up surrounded by all these chefs at the Baratier, and they all had their different skill sets. It's not really a surprise that he picked up on a lot of these tricks that he's showing now. It's just been a long time since he's really had a chance to use them. I think the last time that he really showed off much of his knowledge when it actually comes to preparing food was probably when he fought Spaghetti Man on the Sea Train. Yeah, the member of CP7? I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. I think his name started with a W, but it's been a while, so I'm not gonna call back to that right now, without having a name. But regardless, it's been a while, and it's really cool to me to see Sanji getting to showcase his cooking. Most of the crew doesn't get to show off their stuff. It's mainly just Usopp showing off his ability to make things, Frankie making things, and then Brooke playing music. We don't really get to see much of the other members of the crew's skill, I guess, except for Nami, who gets to show her weather reading ability. It seems like for everybody else, it's kind of just combat, but it's nice to see when a crew member gets to show off their other skills that aren't combat related. Pudding comes out in a chef's outfit, and Sanji, of course, compliments her, and then she falls to the ground because she's overwhelmed. I like this gag. That is the reverse of what normally happens when Sanji sees a pretty girl and they say something to him. I don't know how long I'll like it. I feel like it could wear itself thin pretty quickly because it is just the same gag replayed. The other gag with Pudding I like a whole lot more, where when she says something to Sanji, it's the end of that panel before she adds something else that's dear or san or anything like that. It's a really nice little gag in my opinion because it doesn't take much to do, and I can see it working pretty well in the anime. We move on though to this whole scene with Luffy and Katakuri in the mirror. I'm real torn on it because at one point it's real good and it calls back to Shibari Archipelago in a really cool way, where Prospero's taunting Luffy and the crew is in danger and Luffy can't win. And he keeps just desperately struggling, trying to protect them, and eventually he gets to a shard of the mirror, and it's like, hey, you have to break all the mirrors on the ship. There's no time. I'll find another way home. It's a really interesting scene in my opinion, because we rarely get to see Luffy push to this point. Like I said, the last time was probably Shibari Archipelago, and he can't win. He's trying so hard, and he can't win. And at the same time, you also kind of understand where Katakuri's coming from, in that Luffy keeps beating up his family, and he's desperately trying to stop Luffy, who could be a threat to his mom. And in those ways, I really like the scene. On the other hand, you also have the introduction of the two string cheese siblings that just show up with a mirror that they found that also is on the Straw Hat ship, and then they start firing fire arrows through there. It made me think immediately of the two-headed Archer brothers from the Drum Island arc that were in the same body, and they also used bows, in that they were really weird, and they kind of felt out of place in a lot of the more serious scenes they were supposed to be in, and there wasn't really a point to them showing up when they did. It was just really strange. Also, like the snipers from Punk Hazard, who showed up and didn't really do anything. It just feels weird to me anytime Oda brings in these range duos that don't really have a role. Like, they're there obviously to set fire to the ship, but they could have also just sent chest soldiers through to set fire to the ship. And I feel like just throwing them in like this is really strange. Especially because Brûlé controls the mirrors. Where did they come from? Were they with the group the whole time and just not setting fire to the ship while they were on the ship? Or were they waiting in the mirror world this whole time? I don't know. It gets even more confusing to me when we get into the scene with Nami and the tidal wave. That's a really good looking scene, but I'm real confused. So Prospero has Big Mom walking on candy that he's making using his devil fruit. That makes sense to me. That protects her from the salt in the water and from the seawater itself that stops your devil fruit from working. But then she puts a soul into the water and makes that tidal wave a homie? So, since the water is a homie, does that mean that it doesn't count as seawater anymore? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff mixed into the water, but it's just real strange to me that, like, it's tea water, right? But there's still water in tea. And maybe it's supposed to be that, hey, when you boil water to make tea, you get a lot of the salt out. I don't know, it feels really weird to me to suddenly see Big Mom standing on top of a tidal wave. Like, when Aokiji froze the water and walked on it, that was cool, because the water's frozen. You're not dipping below the surface, because the water doesn't actually affect you until you're in it. I don't know. It's a really cool looking scene, but it just feels weird to me. Maybe she's on top of the candy on top of the wave? And if so, that makes sense. But the rules in One Piece are very strict when it comes to seawater, and I like that. It's why the flying devil fruits are so powerful, like Doflamingos. And to have Big Mom just be riding this tidal wave without any real explanation to it, it just kind of bugs me. Maybe next chapter we find out, hey, guess what? She's on top of the candy, everything's fine, no worries. This was just for the sake of a big, like, end moment at the end of the chapter, but we'll see. There's some other really cool stuff in this chapter towards the middle. Pudding is playing around, getting flustered because people are calling her Mrs. Pudding, and people are talking about the wedding, and Sanji's just super business, and I love that. If he had been also fawning over Pudding this whole time, it would have been really weird since the crew's lives are on the line with him making this cake. Katakuri calling out about his brothers and sisters and telling Luffy not to touch them. That was a really nice touch, I think, because a lot of people in the different forums that I've seen have been real confused, I think, about Katakuri's motivation here. There's people going, well, he doesn't really want to fight. All the 4chan memes don't help, honestly. I love those, don't get me wrong, but they don't help where it looks like Katakuri's just super bored all the time because of those memes. Whereas, in actuality, it seems like Katakuri really does care about his family. And he just wants to stop Luffy from tearing him up. He wants to kill Luffy too, don't get me wrong. But the Straw Hats need to be stopped because he views them as a danger. And then Luffy this chapter, I really enjoyed Luffy this chapter. Just desperately trying to get any advantage to be able to help his crew and just not getting anywhere. There's just nothing he could do. And I want to see him pull it out, but at the same time, I also don't know what he could do here. At the end of the day, it might just be the cake is the only thing that saves him. So we shall see. We shall see. Next up, we have the Promised Neverland 57, A Deal, Part 2. Emma lays out their offer, talking about how they're going to forage and get their own food. They're not going to use his food. They figured out that the geezer's hiding something and making a show of there not being enough food. They figured this out in the best way, too, with things that we had already been allowed to see. His boots, the nuts in the pantry, the fact that he was able to get himself out of the wrapping, that he knew about what was going on outside. This guy is strong, and he's skilled, and he's resourceful, and they need him, and we got to learn that organically. Because if they hadn't showed those things and just told us those things, then it would have been like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad they figured that out. But because we also got to see his shoes, and we also got to see the knife that he hid inside the ceiling fan, and we got to see him get out of the restraints, and we got to see those nuts in the pantry, and we got to know that he'd been figuring things out about what was going on outside. When those are revealed, it feels like, oh, of course, yeah! Alright, I'm smart too! And it's little things like that that really go a long way in helping you continue to stay invested in a story. I think one of the worst was Bleach would do the reverse of that, where it would be like, hey, here's a big fight. Well, it turns out he's weak to this you didn't know about. And it's like, okay, but, I mean, we could have mentioned that 2 or 3 chapters ago, or better yet, figured it out organically. Back to Promised Neverland, though, and I'll stop talking about Bleach. They need this guy. And, of course, he's like, no, it'd be faster just to kill you. Pulls out the knife. Emma asks him if he even can. He's like, if I try, yeah. Ray gives him back his gun. And then pulls out a detonator. Of course there was a detonator. They can't let the demons know these shelters are here. Of course there was a detonator. If they get found out, blow up the shelter, done. Is the immediate shock on his face. It's like, oh, well, okay. Emma, with a huge smile, tells him to take the deal. or they blow up the shelter. Within moments, he processes everything, comes up with a plan, and agrees. We get to see this really intense panel of Emma finding Ray dead in this nameless man's imagination, as he thinks it might be fun to go with them. He then, of course, tries to act cool and is like, fine, if you want to die, so be it. I'll let you die. And then one of the kids is like, you can't let him die. And he's just like, shut up, kid. I really like things like that, where this guy clearly is not a terrible person. He just is he wants to survive. And he tried to look real cool and just immediately got shut down. He calls Emma Antenna Shorty, which is, it's a pretty good nickname for her, and refuses to give his name. And then Emma gives him his new name that we shall refer to him by until we know his actual name, Nameless Man. I really love when a character gets a title like this for a name. There's a character in the War God's Own series by David Weber named the Nondescript Man, and I love that. Nameless Man is a good choice. I'm very excited about Nameless Man being in here. So, I'm curious what they're going to find. Do they leave next chapter? Is it going to be 2 or 3 chapters from now before they leave? Or when they leave, if they do leave next chapter, are we going to just immediately go into their journey? Or are we going to cut back to the kids? We'll probably stick with them for a while, but I feel like this guy is going to wind up being pretty important. He says he won't protect them, but I have a feeling that once he gets to know them, he probably will. It would also be really interesting if they run into Mujika again, because I think Sanji's probably dead, and if they run into Mujika again, that could be really interesting. But we shall see. Next up, Dr. Stone 29, Senku's Lab. So Senku and Chrome immediately set to making a kiln for glass crafting, and they're real bad at it. Senku's like, yeah, this is just how it works. This is how it was when I started making earthenware stuff, too. And Chrome's like, we don't have time for that. Give me a sec. And comes back with Old Man Kaseki. And Old Man Kaseki is all wrapped up with ropes, and he's like, this kinky play was some kind of setup for something? And Chrome explains that he's an artisan. And Senku immediately is like, you're the guy who lacquered the shields. He's like, yeah. And Senku's like, you're the guy who made the suspension bridge. And Kaseki's like, yeah. And again, this is organic storytelling where we've already seen the lacquered shields that shouldn't exist, and we've already seen the suspension bridge that shouldn't exist, and we talked about that suspension bridge way back when Senku first got to the village on the weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown, because it was so weird that they had a suspension bridge in a world where they didn't know technology. And there had to be somebody who built it. And here he is, it's Kaseki. He's the guy who makes things here in the town. Sorry, I'm still losing my voice from the other day. But Kaseki's the guy who makes things. He's the artisan. And I love that the things he makes are more down to earth, and so it's not viewed as sorcery compared to the things that Chrome was making and that Senku's making. Immediately Kaseki's like, I'm not gonna help you. Why would I help you? And so Chrome and Senku start making some more glass, and Kaseki breaks his ropes, even though he knows what they're doing. He breaks his ropes and takes over, because he can't just let them keep doing so badly at this. He makes a flume almost immediately. It's crazy how quickly he adapts to it. And Senku's like, hey, yeah, there are always going to be craftsmen dedicated to their craft, even in this world. And it's a really nice touch, because, yeah, that's exactly what's happened. Even in this crazy world, there are still people that are finding new things like Chrome, and that are constantly improving on the way to make things like Kaseki, because that's just what humans do. And it makes perfect sense that Kaseki would be the guy who would do it. He talks about how he's been making stuff for 50 years. And he immediately helps them build a lab after they're finished with the glass. They finish that lab, and you get this really nice flashback where Senku walks into the lab and remembers what it was like the first time he walked into a lab as a kid. The Kingdom of Science is rolling now. And Genro and Kenro are like, but, maybe if we had some better spears, we could win. Maybe if we had some fancy-looking spears. And Genro's like, Kenro, we need to go get gold and silver spears. And his tongue is shaped like a snake as he lies about how important that would be and how useful that would be. Even telling Kenro that if he had a gold spear, then maybe he'd be able to see better with his fuzzy eye disease. Kohaku borrows Senku's catchphrase in a really cute scene and is like, yeah, they're just after 100 billion% just after gold and silver spears. And Senku promises Genro the silver spear. but it's going to cost him. They need something special to be able to continue making Panacea and penicillin. And Genro's got a mission. I don't know how dangerous this is actually going to be. I feel like Senku might be playing this up. But it would be really cool to see Genro and Kenro have to go off on a journey, even though it might just be Genro going, and him to come back much stronger because of it. I don't know what they're going to need. I feel like I should know, but I have no idea, and I'm not even going to try and act like I do. But I'm interested to find out. This was a pretty good chapter. I really liked Kaseki's introduction, and we keep getting told about Kenro's fuzzy eye disease. If you can get him a pair of glasses, my boy Kenro. Just saying. B.O.P. Next up, we have Robot Laserbeam 27, The World of Pros. Robo's parents have a short conversation, and we do get to see Robo's mom finally, about Robo going to watch the tournament, and his mom reflects on how similar he is to his dad. His dad's like, huh? But that comes back up later in the chapter, and I love that we get that setup. I wish it had been a couple chapters ago, so it wasn't just, hey, this gets mentioned for the first time, now we get to see it. But if it had been mentioned a little bit before, that would have been better in my opinion. But we already knew that Robo's dad played golf because of when he talked to the regulars at his school. So it's not like a huge thing. Yozen is scarily close to going pro. And it slowly dawns on Robo and Tomoya that if he did, Robo wouldn't get to face him in a tournament unless he also went pro. They're at this event with Suzaku, and Suzaki's like, hey, we got a lot of time, so let's split up for now. Make sure to meet me back up when it comes time for the match. Robo gets in the wrong line and has to take the Pukun Challenge. And I love that something that ridiculous happens here, since it absolutely happens at weird golf events around where I live anyway. There's a country club not too far away, and there's some weird stuff they put up at that golf course sometime for competitions, things like that. But Robo, of course, has no problem to hit it. He immediately just takes it out. And the instruments recording it are like, there's zero side spin! Oh no! Is something broken? And of course, we all knew that would happen. His laser is completely straight. It doesn't waver. That's why it's called a laser, not a wave. A reporter on the scene recognizes the swing, though, and it's like, that's like Hatohara Shimon. And Robo and Tomoya make it back to Saku, tells them that he invited Robo here so he can see what the pro scene looks like, since that's where he'll crush Robo one day. And then Yozen steps up to swing as the chapter ends. I loved finding out a little bit more about Hatohara Shimon. Thought that was really cool. The reporter that was already going to be on the scene anyway because this is a professional tournament, or it's an amateur tournament, but going into the professionals. I love that he was the one that recognized the swing. And the other reporter was like, but I want to go watch Yozen's match because he's hot. And it's just, anytime you have background characters being people is always a plus for me. Because most of the time background characters are just like, oh, I can't believe that happened. Did you see that happen? Whereas in this case, it's just like, hey, that's exactly like this other golfer that I know. Wow! And it's like, yeah, that's what people would actually react with. So yeah, this was a really good chapter for background characters. Not a lot really happened for Robo, other than finding out that Suzaku wants him to go pro, and that Yozen's probably going to go pro. It's only a matter of time before Suzaku goes pro, so Robo needs to go pro too. And of course, Tomoya is just like, Robo going pro? It's like, yeah, that's going to happen. He's too good. He's going to take some time, but it's going to happen. He's too good. So yeah, this was a fun chapter. Again, it felt a little short, and we spent a little bit more time on the Pukun challenge than I think we probably should have. But there was a really nice gag where they tried to give him a toilet, and Robo's like, I can't take the toilet because I have to go right now. And Tomoya's just like, why would you give him that right now? So yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed the chapter. Next up, we have We Never Learned 33, Geniuses and a Predecessor Cause Mental Anguish for X. This was a fun chapter too. We have Furuhashi, Ogata, and Takamoto enrolling in the summer school that is, although they're in a different class, and they're like, yeah, we've come a long way. We're going to do this, Yuiga. We're not even going to need your help. And Yuiga's proud. He's like, they're not going to need me anymore soon. The first break, Ogata comes rushing in, and she's, I can't understand one picometer of what's going on. The next break is Takamoto, and she claims that they just need to be content to speak Japanese and give up on English. And then the next break is Furuhashi, who probably had my favorite line in this whole chapter, where she tells Yuiga that she needs him to slap her, as she's circling ever closer to the somniferous abyss. Asumi threatens Yuiga, saying that this is taking up her time, and she pays to be here, but she still gives her advice anyway. The girls, of course, immediately thank her. On the way home, it starts raining, and they go to Asumi's house. There's a really nice back and forth here where Takamoto forgets the word squall, and Ogata confidently corrects her, and is still wrong. She says scroll, and they get into Asumi's house, and, you know, all their clothes are soaked, of course, so Yuiga accidentally sees Takamoto's bra, and it's just like, oh no, and covers his eyes and turns around. But it was, as much as I really dislike the, oh no, my clothes are wet, you can see through them trope, I do appreciate the callback to the previous chapters where Takamoto did buy that bra, because it is the same bra. They talk about it in the chapter. Almost immediately, though, we move past that gag, because that gag, in my opinion, just wasn't that great, so I'm glad that we were able to just move past it. And we get into Furuhashi going to get some more towels, and thanking Asumi's dad, who, of course, talks to her about Yuiga, because he still thinks that Yuiga is his daughter's boyfriend. Furuhashi immediately gets upset, pulls Yuiga out of the room, and then jabs him in the stomach, demands answers. She also prepares his stomach medicine because her stomach's hurting her for reasons she's not sure. It's because she's in love with Yuiga. She doesn't know it yet, so don't tell her. But that's why. It doesn't hurt, it has butterflies. She asks him why he would lie, what's going on, and Asumi tells her. And Furuhashi's like, oh, and asks if Asumi doesn't have feelings for Yuiga, and then she's like, oh, I wouldn't say that. I like him well enough, he's pretty cute. And Furuhashi and Yuiga are just like, oh! And then, of course, she tells him she's joking. And Yuiga's like, don't joke like that. And then she asks Furuhashi if Furuhashi has feelings for Yuiga. And Furuhashi's just like, no! I thought this was really fun. It was a little strange for Furuhashi and Asumi to be talking about that with Yuiga right there. And Yuiga's dense as always and has no idea what's going on. But it was pretty interesting to see that conversation go back and forth. Later on, back at the cafe, we get to see Yuiga because, you know, Asumi brought it up. He's now looking at her like a girl, and he finds that she's actually really pretty. And, you know, he's blushing a little bit. And then she asks him, what if she wasn't joking earlier? And he's like, and she's got an omelet that she puts on the table. She says, what if I told you what I really think about you? He's like, and then she writes in ketchup, you player, on the omelet. And it was just this really good scene where then he's like, I'm gonna eat it anyway. She's like, that's weird. I really like Asumi as a character. I don't think there's going to be a winner. I think he's probably going to wind up open-ended, and Yuiga's just going to wind up with nobody, or with all of them. Who knows? But I found all the interactions with Asumi really interesting this chapter. I know that I was worried when she first got introduced, because I was like, oh no, here we go. There's another girl in the equation now. But I really like her as a character. She's pretty good. This was a fun chapter. Next up, we have My Hero Academia 154, Unforeseen Hope. Oh man, this chapter was really good. So, Chisaki immediately starts with that he went a little too far, and then he pities Mirio, and then drops the bomb about Mirio losing his quirk. Which of course gives him the second he needs to grab the case with the bullets. And I see that coming back at some point. And then he rushes at Night Eye. Deku is more determined than ever to stop him. He uses the rubble in a really clever way to avoid Overhaul's hands. But then Night Eye takes over, and he's like, hey, get them out of here. Get Mirio and Eri out of here. And Deku's like, okay, I'll do it. Night Eye's immediately like, where's Aizawa? And Overhaul drops the bomb that they took Aizawa because he wants to use his quirk to be able to make more quirk silencing bullets. Of course he does. It could be even cheaper with his quirk. Who knows? Overhaul is already thinking about the long term because he doesn't think he's going to lose here. Because to be honest, he's winning. Night Eye puts up a really good fight and is thinking about his student, and Overhaul immediately recognizes the fighting style. And Night Eye tells Chisaki that he was just scared of Lemillion, and that's what it is. Deku breaks open the wall, Aries clinging to Mirio, apologizing, and Deku gets the two of them out of the room as Mirio looks back at Night Eye to see that he's been impaled. I saw a lot of people on NeoGAF and on Reddit complaining because they were like, Night Eye is supposed to be better than this. But there's a lot of things to think about in how Night Eye lost this fight. The first is that his quirk can be really useful, but he himself has stated that he can't change the future with it. He can just see the future with it. You also have that he's very well trained, but Mirio uses Night Eye's fighting style, and overall had quite a bit of experience fighting Mirio. So he already knows these moves, and even Overhaul, Chisaki himself states in this chapter that Night Eye's moves aren't as fast as Mirio's. So it was only a matter of time till he pinned him down, and it only takes one touch. And that's what he got. And Night Eye, in his last moments, reads Overhaul's future, hoping for one small sliver of hope to see Overhaul arrested and being taken away, and everybody making it out and okay. All he sees is darkness. And it just... the despair on his face as he just looks up while impaled, knowing that according to his quirk, it's over. They lost. They can't win. And then Deku comes in, 20% cowl, and defies that future. Remember, the last amount of cowl we'd seen was 8%. Deku's now going 20. He intends to save Night Eye. He intends to save Mirio. He intends to save Eri. He intends to save Aizawa. And he intends to stop Overhaul. And, oh man, am I excited to see Deku fight Overhaul now that he's angry and now that he's at 20% cowl. Because remember, the only reason he wasn't doing this before is that he'd been told not to. He'd been told no matter what not to do this. But how can he just sit there and watch everybody die? He can't. That's not like him to do. So he fights back. This was a really good chapter. And if Sir is dead, I hope that he gets to live long enough to see Deku beat Overhaul and defy that darkness that he saw. Finally, for this week, we have One Punch Man 75, Bored Like Usual. Saitama, still contemplating how utterly meaningless everything is for him right now, honestly, runs into King, who's in disguise, of course. King tries to cheer Saitama up, thinking he's depressed about his hair, and Saitama tells him he's bored. There's no more growing for him. He's reached the pinnacle of his strength. He can't get any stronger. And compares it to being max level in a game. Saitama's afraid he's losing his human emotion. In strength, I feel only loss is a line that he states in this chapter. And it's so powerful for him. Because look at the arc he just came from with the tournament, where he had to see all these different people with all these different emotions. And he didn't feel any of that. In strength, I feel only loss. King tells him, go make new friends, go on a trip. And Saitama says he doesn't want to go anywhere. He's reached a plateau. And with it, he's depressed. This is textbook depression right here. And one of the ways that you're supposed to get out of depression is, some physical fitness could help, maybe. But that doesn't help him anymore. Maybe going on a trip, he could go wherever he wants. No matter where he went, he thinks there would be no joy. Or anger, really. He's just completely out of it now. King tells him he may be the strongest, but he isn't the greatest hero. What makes the greatest hero? That's what you should be striving for. And Saitama tells him that just sounds more boring. King challenges to a video game, and Saitama says he doesn't care if he wins or loses. He's really reached this bottom. It's rock bottom, through and true, where there's nothing that he can see to pull him out of it. Genos has his goals, and even Suiryu had his goals. But Saitama doesn't have any goals anymore. He wanted to be a hero, and he is a hero, and nobody likes him, really, and nobody can stand against him. And then King's like, hey, but what if I only use 2 fingers? And Saitama's like, that's it! Then the Hero Hunter shows up. And he has already fought Watchdog Man. And Watchdog Man has utterly defeated him where every jab Watchdog Man played Shake. And then just wrecked him. I also love the shot of Watchdog Man on the crosswalk, defending his territory, and the pile of monsters beside him. And so the hero hunter is like, that's King. I may be hurt, but I might never have a chance like this again. And springs forward, and he looks at all the possible ways that King could move. And then Saitama just kicks him. Just knocks him into a wall. It's like, hey, did you know who that guy was? He's like, nope. And then Saitama and King start talking about the hero hunter. And about how Saitama has high hopes for the hero hunter. He may even be stronger than me. As they walk away. This was another really fun chapter. We got to look more into Saitama's depression that he's dealing with. And how bad it's bringing him down. And I hope we do get some closure on this, but I want it to last a little bit longer. I want to see him have to talk to a couple other characters. Maybe Genos or Tatsumaki or even Fubuki. And see how things work out from there. Just see where it brings him before he finally does come out of it. And I'm curious what his goal's going to be. Maybe he'll try to learn psychic energy and figure it out immediately. Maybe he'll try to pick up some more techniques and not need them. But who knows? We'll see where Saitama goes from here. This has always been one of my favorite things about One Punch Man the entire time, is that Saitama doesn't really have a reason to keep fighting. And him trying to find that reason is one of my favorite things. But now we will finish up with the lightning round for this week, starting off with Black Clover 127, Golden Black Sparks. This was a really solid chapter. I loved Langris giving into his hate. I loved Finral trying to be a big brother. I loved all of the Black Bulls intervening. Good thing for good thing for Langris. I almost said Fingris. Good thing for Langris that Yami wasn't here. Very interested in how this fight turns out. Really hope it's not just Asta and Langris next chapter. 2 thumbs up. Really love this chapter. 233, Food Wars, Proof of Growth. This was a really solid setup chapter. I really enjoyed the team working together. I really enjoyed Takumi getting a flashback. Looking forward to seeing what Aizen's thing is. And just for that face alone, I think I've got to give it 2 thumbs up. That Aizen face at the end was crazy. One Piece 880, Zero Escape. I'm really torn on this chapter. On the one hand, I really liked a lot of the stuff about it. On the other hand, I also really didn't like a lot of stuff about the String Cheese siblings and all of that going on. About the stuff with the water with Big Mom. About the 31 chefs that I'm pretty sure we've never heard about before and I could be wrong on. Please put it in the comment section below if I am. I'm going to give this 1 thumb up because I did enjoy a lot of the stuff with Luffy and with the crew and with Sanji. I just didn't really enjoy that much on the Big Mom side. Although Parasparrow did really have a good line about Pedro. But yeah, 1 thumb up for sure. The Promised Neverland 57, Deal Part 2. Yeah, this is a really good chapter. All the finding things out that we had already figured out, and the storytelling working with us instead of against us. I really enjoyed that. 2 thumbs up for sure. Looking forward to see what happens with the Nameless Man. Dr. Stone 29, Senku's Lab. Kaseki's great. I love that Genro's going on a quest. The flashback with Senku was really good, even though it was only 1 panel. The stuff with Chrome bringing Kaseki out there. 1 thumb up. Really enjoyed this chapter. Looking forward to some more stuff next week. Robot Laserbeam 27, The World of Prose. This was a really fun chapter. We learned more about Shimon, and we got to see Robo win a toilet. I'm going to give it 1 thumb up. It could have had some more things in there, I think, but it was still really enjoyable. We Never Learned 33, Genius and a Predecessor calls Mental Anguish for X. I felt like the chapter was really good, except for that one gag in the middle with the wet clothes. But other than that, I very much enjoyed the chapter. Really much enjoyed the chapter. 2 thumbs up. Good chapter, good Asami, love Asami, and her dad. My Hero Academia 154, 2 thumbs up, absolutely. Great chapter. Night Eye getting to see the future and seeing only darkness. Deku going 20% cowl. Everybody else finding out about Mirio's quirk being gone. Eri just gripping on Mirio like that. And Overhaul just loving how much fun he's having fighting back now. It's real good. One Punch Man 75. I'm gonna give it 1 thumb up. It still covered the things that I love about Saitama as a character, but I felt like there were a couple moments where it kind of dragged down. The Watchdog Man fight was really good, but the Hero Hunter, I think it might have been a better ending for the chapter. I know they went for the comedy ending. I think it might have been a better stinger for the chapter to just have him see King and start walking that way, and then that'd be next chapter, the start of the next chapter, have it just be a complete nothing. But, I don't know. It was still a good chapter. 1 thumb up for sure. That has been the Weekly Shonen Jump breakdown, that's the word, for the week of October. That's right, it's October now. October 2nd. I have been Trey. Please put in the comment section below your thoughts on the chapters this week, and we'll be back next week with more Shonen Jump. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Jump has to offer.